guys.
Afternoon.
It's not even afternoon. Hey guys, it's Miki.
It's Kev.
And Kevin. Can we redo that?
Okay.
And today we are filming a sit-down video for you guys. I don't think Kevin and I have actually ever done a sit-down video together.
Yeah.
Have we?
We have like clips of you
us making big announcements.
Oh, you didn't clap at the beginning.
Why? Oh, to sync it?
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I'll clap now. At least I clap somewhere, right? I don't know how this works. Kev and I sometimes have really intellectual and also really not intellectual conversations.
Entertaining conversations.
Yeah, and I feel like it would be interesting to bring you guys along, talking about different things that are relevant to our lives, whether it is, medicine, healthcare, relationships in medicine, or Asian cultural backgrounds, things like that. And so if you could please hit that like button, give this a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, it really helps us out. So today, the topic that we're discussing is the truth about being a doctor. The truth. Kevin doesn't like when I say the truth. He prefers the reality of being a doctor.
Is it more clickbaity? Is that what we're trying to accomplish here?
A review of the last 3 months of residency and
the first 3 months of residency.
Yes, right? The first 3 months of residency. How it has been. Has it met your expectations? Has it been different than your expectations? And your entire journey up until this point, and whether or not you feel like you got your money's worth.
Money's worth?
Worth it.
Worth it?
Episode 1. Let's just start from the beginning. So explain a little bit for people who might not be in the medical field what exactly it takes to be a doctor. So what are the educational steps? What are the things that you would have to do to get into med school, get into residency?
Mm-hmm. So I went to preschool, kindergarten, and then
Okay, thank you.
K through 12.
Okay.
Once I was done with that, you have to go to college. So in the U.S., you have to get a bachelor's degree first before you do any postgraduate training in medicine or any other field. So you do 4 years of bachelor's, and then you apply to medical school. So it's 4 years after high school of bachelor's, and then 4 years of med school before you start your residency, where you're a training physician.
Mm-hmm.
What's actually pretty interesting is that so you don't actually specialize in medicine until you're done with your undergraduate degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so your medical school class is actually pretty diverse in terms of their backgrounds.
So breaking it down in terms of the numbers, it would be 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school, and then how many years of residency?
From 3 to 7, depending on what residency and what specialty you decide to go into. So anywhere between family medicine, general surgery, neurosurgery, radiology, all of those have different numbers of years for their residency training.
And then, of course, after residency, you also have the choice to do fellowship, which is further even more specialized training. But just give people a picture. So if you were to literally go all the way straight through, let's say you graduated college at 22, what is the youngest age that you could be an attending physician? And an attending physician, if you didn't already know, is someone who is done with their training and
They can independently practice medicine without anybody supervising.
Right. Supervising.
Supervising. So if you finish undergrad at 22, after 4 years of medical school, you'd be 26. And then the shortest residency is family medicine, internal medicine, or pediatrics. I think those are usually 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so mathematically you'd be 29, 30-ish. So it takes a long time, and it's not just one path. There's a lot of different steps getting there.
Mm-hmm. So med school acceptance rate for top med schools are 1 to 2%. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something 40% of people who apply to MD programs actually are accepted. And so that's a very low number. Right, if you compare it with college applicants, I don't know exactly what it is, but imagine if only 40% of high schoolers were able to get into college on their first shot. Right, so this entire process is so rigorous and rocky, and there are so many things to weed you out when you're a pre-med, right? So you have to take, first of all these prerequisite courses.
It is competitive, and there is a certain level of toxicity associated with competitiveness, but I think that's something that you can't get rid of at all, ever. And I think in some ways the beginning of it is good because you're at the end stage. Like the reason that you got there is because you jumped through all these hurdles and you became successful because you're able to successfully navigate these circumstances. But I agree that there are definitely certain situations and certain things that people shouldn't need to do to get there in the first place. But I think that the really important thing is that when you talk about weeding people out, it's actually good that people are deciding to do something else with their lives, because not everyone that they like, oh, I want to be a doctor, should be a doctor. And I think that a lot of people should take time to figure out, oh, am I suited for this kind of career, right? And then some of the hurdles that you have to face as a pre-med are actually good in terms of going through that. And I think the best example that I think people have is organic chemistry. I don't know, there's probably internet memes floating around where they're saying that, oh, I didn't do well. And my thought about that is that I think people give up. A lot of people that I know who quit pre-med really early, oh, like, how am I supposed to do well in OChem? Like, how does that, like, if I don't do well in a class, my life is over, right? And I think you have to really be honest with yourself. Like, I'm sure that you're going to try super hard in that one class, but that really shouldn't determine the rest of your life.
Like, if you wanted it bad enough, you would make it work.
Yeah, whether it's trying hard in that class or you can figure out other ways to, it's not just that one grade that's going to push you like down or up, right? And that's something that, like, as a doctor, you really need to learn how to do. Like, you're going to have days in which it's not going to be good. They complain that, oh, organic chemistry has nothing to do with being a doctor, right? Which I agree with. Like, none of those things I use on a daily basis. But I think it's a really good class that makes you think about how things, like, it's a problem-solving class. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be solving problems as a doctor that is not solvable. So it's a similar experience.
Yeah, I hear you. I think this sparks a bigger conversation of people who are less privileged and aren't able to have access to resources. Yeah, it's definitely not a system built to support everyone. It's going to leave that for another time because that in itself is like a huge conversation. Today we're just talking about Kev's experience and Kev's journey.
Okay. Fortunately, have had supportive parents and been able to choose the educational path that I wanted. So I want to...
How do you feel talking about that? And we don't have to if you don't want to, but talking about coming from an Asian household and being a physician, and whether or not you felt like you had the pressure to become a physician, whether it was encouraged.
That's a juicy topic too. There's always nature versus nurture. Like, there's always, like, both my parents are in the science field, so like they've definitely helped me build curiosity towards medicine. But I've always been, like, I don't know, not type A's. I wanted to always do, like, solve problems and do innovative things, and it seemed like medicine is the one thing that I thought best suited my personality and what I want to do. And then even more so, I like working with my hands and helping people in that capacity.
Do you feel like, honestly, growing up, your parents were like, hey, it would be great to be a doctor, hey, it would be great to be...
Yeah, I think people, and I think that's not unhealthy, and I think that's just encouragement, and I don't think they, like if you think about a river, right, like, you're going to always flow one direction, and there can be people that, like, move you a little bit this way or that way, right? And that's fine. Like, you need to have those types of mentors who, like, and I think being a doctor is a great, great career.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do you feel like if you were to have decided not to be a physician, your parents would have still supported that decision wholeheartedly?
I mean, depends on what field. Like, if I was, like, gonna just be like, oh, I'm gonna just work a 9-to-5 job, hourly wage job with, like, no, like, education after high school, they would be definitely a little more disappointed. But that's definitely something that I don't want to do anyway, so it's fine.
I try to get into the juicy bitch stuff, and you're not giving me, like, any tea.
Really?
I just want to talk about, like, that, like, expectation, right? Because a lot of the times Asian families, like, there's memes all over the internet about Asian families wanting their children to become a doctor, become a physician. But as much as it is a stereotype, I think for a lot of us, it is a reality, right? And your parents are constantly promoting this idea of like, hey, you know, being in healthcare, first of all, is a really good job because it's stable, right? It's one of the jobs where you wouldn't, you know, there are always people who are going to be sick and need to be.
Yeah, and it's a really respected field. A lot of Asian families, like I think physicians are well respected, and they just want to have their children to have like be respected and have like a good future. But I don't think it's necessarily an Asian thing either. Like if you look at a lot of the physicians, what's really funny, or I don't know if it's funny is the right word, is that like a lot of the doctors that were my like teachers in medical school, their kids are going to med school, right? Because it must be a good thing, right?
I don't remember exactly what the stat is, but it's something like 50% of physicians would not recommend to their children to also go into medicine. And it's like, I think it's polar opposites, right? You have a handful of people who are in healthcare and love it, and you have a handful of people who feel like it wasn't the best fit for them and hate it. Yeah. And so I think it goes both ways. And I think you're always kind of like Switzerland, you always kind of stand in the middle, and I'm like pretty polar in terms of my thoughts and my support, and so it's always interesting when we have conversations about things.
You mean like...
Right? You started residency 3 months ago, you're 3 months in, you've been on a couple different rotations. Tell me, just break down for me what a normal day and what a normal week looks like. Okay. When do you get time off? What time do you have to wake up in the morning? When do you have to go to bed? Things like that.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say as a surgical resident, most people will wake up probably about 5 a.m. That's the like not too early, not too late. When you hit that 4 a.m. wake up, you realize that, ooh, this is an early day, right? The time in which you wake up is kind of dictated by when you need to round on your patients before you start your official day. So how each day kind of breaks up is that for the surgical specialty, you have planned cases in the operating room scheduled for during the day. And then usually those cases start at 7:30 a.m. And so you need to be done with all the things taken care of by that time. And the other things that you need to take care of are usually the patients who are already in the hospital that your team needs to take care of. For example, like we did a surgery on someone 3 days ago and they're still in the hospital and we're taking care of them. Or if they're in the hospital for a problem that our specialty is in charge of. You need to know what their plan is, how they were doing the night before, and how we can, what the plan for the day.
Yeah, your orders need to be in for the day so that the nurses and everyone else can adequately care for the patient.
Your notes and everything else. So that needs to happen by 7:30. So you need to just kind of crank back the hours before then to do that. The other types of days would be, if there's no ORs, it would be clinic, and clinic usually starts at 8. So if there's no ORs, maybe your day gets shifted later. And so the things that you need to do before then would be to round. And then rounding is this general term in which your team will go over what happened to the patient overnight, their vitals, the things, their imaging, their physical exam, and all of the things. Figure out what needs to be done for them. And then also see the patient and update them about the goals for their day.
Right.
And so let's say you have 10 patients on your service, you need to have allocated time to see 10 patients, figure out what happened to them before 7:30. Medicine is unfortunately, or it's very hierarchical in terms of, who comes in first and sets up a day.
To summarize...
That was really long, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I also didn't go chronologically because it didn't make sense to do it that way.
No, you're very cute. You always do this thing where you like talk about this and then you think about this thing and then you add it in. But, so, to summarize, a typical day starts anywhere from 4 to 5 a.m. because as an intern, you have to kind of do a lot of scut work before the rest of the team gets in to kind of prepare the day. Right? And so you have to pre-round on everyone, make sure that you are caught up on what happened overnight, plan for the day, and then you round with the entire team. And then after you're done rounding with the team, putting in your notes, putting in your orders so that everyone else is aware with what is going on with that patient for the day, then you start your day in either OR or the clinic, correct?
Oh, wow, that was a good summary.
Thank you. What time do you normally say you would get off?
Probably 7 to 8 is the average, and then there's probably a normal distribution of probably the earliest is 5:30.
Latest was like 10 p.m.
Yeah, 10
and so it really varies. But yes, I would say on average you get home around 7 to 8 p.m. And so every single day that you do work is at least 14, 15, 16 hours.
Yeah, and notice how we don't have lunch breaks or things labeled in because you just try to eat whenever you can. Just depending on the rotation, there are some where you have more time between clinic patients or the OR turnovers.
How often do you get days off? What does your month look like?
So like the kind of the way that it works is we have to have at least 4 days off per month. And as a surgical subspecialty, we usually don't have scheduled cases on the weekends. So like every weekday we're definitely working, and then on the weekends we'll have people on call and people who round the patients on service. So we'll usually work one weekend and then not work another weekend.
So you're working every other weekend.
Yes.
And so with 4 weeks in the month, typically that's exactly 4 days off a month, correct?
Yeah. And then sometimes you're lucky if your team is larger and you get a few more days off. But usually turns out that way. So a lot of times you're working like 12 days in a row.
Right.
Before your 2 days off.
And what is it called when you have 2 days off in a row?
The golden weekend. The regular weekend.
No, we call it a golden weekend in medicine when you get to have 2 days off in a row, because there are a lot of, for example, the ICU, those interns typically work 6 days on, 1 day off. I think you really need 2 days off in a row to really feel like you have time off. The first day is you like scrambling, recovering, sleeping.
Doing your laundry.
Yeah,
I have to figure out when I can go to the dentist. I think that's the biggest thing. Like before all this pandemic things, a lot of dentists were open on Saturday.
Yeah.
But now they're not. Anybody watching this have a dental practice that
in Seattle, please hit us up.
That can do like past 8 p.m. or
before 5 a.m.
on some weekends. Hit me up. Yeah.
So tell me about your quality of life. So what's this? what is the sleep schedule like? Do you feel like you get enough sleep? Like running errands? Tell me about that.
I think it's really good to have a supportive partner like Miki. Yeah, I think sleep, you just have to learn how to wake up early. I think you can get like 6-7 hours of sleep a night, but one thing is that you have to balance, you have to remember residency, you're still learning how to be a doctor, and there's like textbooks and things that you should be reading to like get ready for the next day. So for example, like if there's a big case.
Yeah, can we talk about that? So then we have the 16 hours during the day, and then you come home and you're writing more notes, you are looking up stuff for tomorrow, you are doing all this stuff to prep, because obviously you're in a learning mode, which means that your day actually isn't only 16 hours, it's really more like every waking second until the moment that you fall asleep, right?
Or even during sleep, like you just dream about this stuff all the time. For example, like as a surgical resident, it's important to like prep for your case. Like if there's a particular procedure that's happening the next day, and you're like helping and doing that procedure, like you need to like look it up and make sure you know what are the important steps and how to prepare. Your level of involvement in the case is dictated by how much the attending doctor sees confidence in you. And like if you don't know anything that's going on, like if they're like, oh, what's the first step, you do this, so what's the second step, like what's the anatomy, what are you worried about, and if you can't answer those questions, they're not going to let you do those things, and you're just going to end up watching, and that's not a day wasted, but that's less learning and less opportunity that you could have gone. And those are the things that you kind of have to prep.
I feel like we strayed from the original question, which was...
Oh, what was that?
How do you feel like residency has affected your quality of life?
I think it's just trying to figure out what your priorities are. I called the light people last week.
Well, they said I couldn't call them.
What is that?
The light people wouldn't give... We haven't paid our... Are we allowed to say this? We haven't paid our lighting bill for the last...
We did.
We did.
We got charged extra money because we don't have it set up.
Okay, well, yeah, we couldn't set up our lighting thing, and nobody was picking up the phone, and so I tried to call on behalf of Kevin, and they were like, we can't speak to you.
Which makes no sense because we're both on the lease.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't
how
know.
it works.
We still haven't fixed it yet, but like those are things that like it's hard for me to do
Yeah.
during the day. Like yeah, it's okay. Like I think it's the worst thing is like I come home late and I can only spend a couple of minutes with Miki and I just like fall asleep. And,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're gonna have an episode where it's.
Is it my turn to talk now? Should I say how I feel? Yeah, I mean it is really difficult. I mean, I think I'm so heartbroken seeing you go to work for such long hours and then you come home, you do even more work, and then you basically fall asleep right after all that work is done, and you repeat that for 12 days in a row until you get your nice golden weekend.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of reality of things, right? Is that what you expected going into medicine, or?
Yeah, they prep you I mean, as a medical student, you do like sub-internships where you basically live that life. But you only do it for 1 month and usually get a little break here and there.
Yeah. What did it feel like being a new doctor and writing orders and having people call you doctor? Because 3 months ago you were still a student.
Yeah, well the first couple of days is crazy. Like every order I have to write, I'm like, are you sure I can put this in? Like is
no one's double checking your work.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. There's a lot of responsibility and like now I'm like writing scripts and things like that and like prescribing narcotics for post-op patients and you're just like, oh, here's my DEA number, like it's all documented. And
was it cool when people first started calling you doctor? Like, did you feel...
No,
you didn't feel like, wow, this is something that
weird.
I worked so hard for.
No, like when you see patients in clinic, I'm like, hey, this is doctor. It's just like, it's still very weird. And I think the weirdness comes from, like, you don't tell everybody that you talk to that, oh yeah, I've only been a doctor for 2 months, right? And then you have to give people advice. You're like, oh yeah, I think that this is going to happen, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they don't have that asterisk saying that, oh, I just started. I mean, sometimes you do tell them I just started, and some people understand medicine better, but,
And they have so much trust and faith
yeah,
in
and that's very scary, yeah. And then even within, like,
what would you say is the best and the worst part of being a new doctor?
The best part?
And what's your favorite thing about being a doctor?
I think the best part is just seeing the patients, like, get out of the hospital and, like,
I feel like Kevin is so nonchalant, like, when you're just, like, a very neutral personality, but, like, when Kevin says that he loves the patients, like, it makes you so happy to see patients do well and to like follow through with their care. And like I hear you come home and you call patients and you call their families, and like I can feel how much you care about them. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, even with all the kind of crummy stuff that you have to do with your job, you feel like it's worth it because of that component, right?
Yeah, well, because the patients have a more crappier day, like they went through surgery or something else.
Yeah.
I'm just working a lot. It's not great, but like I'm still healthy.
I genuinely think Kevin has the best possible personality to be in medicine because first of all, you don't ever really get angry at things. So like things make you annoyed or like, you're a little bit not happy about it, but you're never angry and you recover really quickly even if you do get kind of pissed. And you kind of like...
Except for driving, right? I just honk, just love. It's a very short thing. It's like, hey, you did something wrong, get out of my way, and then I'm done.
I just feel like you, whatever the situation is, you take it as it is, and you're okay with that, and you have to have that personality in order to successfully survive through residency, right?
I think a lot of things that don't, I guess maybe it's shown a lot in TV, is that it's a stressful environment, so people's personalities come out pretty... often, right?
Well, because people are sleep deprived,
Yeah.
You're hungry because you're running around all day, what were we talking about? Oh, the fact that you've lost 10 pounds since you started residency.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find time to, one, work out, and two, I was saying that I don't usually eat until I'm done with my tasks, and I don't finish my tasks regularly. And then at the end of the day, I go home, I'm just stuffed down as much food as I can, but my main priority is sleep and doing other things, so I end up just...
Doing other things, eh?
Well, like hang out with you and like making sure like the things are ready for the next day.
I think you and I both know that if I were to live your life, I would have gained 10 pounds.
That's because you'd be stress
Right?
eating. There is stuff happening to like help with residency work, but like we have like we are mandated to like report how many hours we work every day from what time to what time, like online, and then we're not supposed to go over 80 hours a week, or else you get in trouble. But like if you work 16 hours a day for 5 days a week, that's already 80. So yeah, I don't know. You guys do the math.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know, there's a lot of things that people are trying to make the hours less, but you know, it's hard to change a culture that's been around for so many years. And there's just so many things that needs to happen in the hospital for things to run. And if there were no residents in the hospital doing what they do, a lot of people would be worse off than they would be.
Worse off.
Yes, that's the. So I think the one thing that makes medicine such a field in which such overworking is tolerated is because, like, I think the analogy is like this. Like, if I want to fix my computer, if my computer is broken, it is acceptable for a computer shop to be closed and say you can just come back when we're open again, right? But with medicine, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like if someone's sick and they want to see a doctor, they have to be seen, and then sometimes there's more patients than you can physically see in a day or in the hospital. But you just have to somehow do the extra work, right? You extend yourself to the extent that the number of tasks that need to happen, and that's more socially acceptable in medicine, and that is something that becomes kind of glorified. More detailed conversations about that in the future.
I don't even know how long these clips are, so
they're pretty long. Yeah, this is just an overview of things that we could talk about in future podcasts.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about really juicy topics like relationships in medicine. Do doctors really date nurses? Do people really, you know, do fun stuff in the on-call rooms, you know?
Doctors really date nurses.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
that's for a later episode. If there are topics that you would like us to talk about in the future, whether it's related to medicine, related to our backgrounds, related to,
just life in general.
Yeah, life in general. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please leave us a comment down below. Let us know what topics you would like us to talk about. It would really save our lives because we're both super indecisive.
You want to come here? Come. Or you want to have an episode about Lucky? Come here. Up. Hey.
Lucky, come here.
Up. That was pretty good.
You did a big jump. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and
we have to come up with a podcast title. Right?
If you have suggestions, leave it down below. And
then suggest what we should do for like our podcast. Do we need like fancy couches, or do we need like nice mics? Like what should be the first thing that we invest? People just want to see Kevin, right? No, I'm just kidding.
I genuinely think people only want to see you.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
They're on your channel.
Okay.
This is the confidence of.
I love you guys so much. I really, really do. Don't forget to follow us on our socials, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. This guy's getting a.
Oh, don't forget that you're a 10 out of 10 and don't let anyone ever make you feel